This video is about the fibre optic kits you can buy off eBay for doing starry ceilings and things like that. But it's also a little experiment. I'd like you to let me know in the comments down below what advertising you're getting from YouTube on this video. I'd like you to tell me if you're getting the pre-roll advert that you can skip, the one that pops up from the bottom that you can click little X to get rid of it, or both. I just want to know what's actually being served up, because I don't actually see the results of my settings because YouTube doesn't normally serve adverts if I look at my own videos. But getting on to the main subject now. These are fibre optic kits that are very, very affordable. I mean, £32 might seem quite expensive, but you're actually getting a lot for your money. Certainly, fibre optics in the past have always been something that I'd normally associate with architectural applications, and I used to get my fibre optics from a company in the UK called Universal Fibre Optics. And I have to say, if I was doing a professional installation, if I wanted downlighters fed from a central source, then I would still choose Universal Fibre Optics, because they do the glass fibres, basically bundles of thin glass fibres in a plastic sleeve with the brass ferrules in the end. They're very rugged, super long life, and they also do the really intense metal halide discharge lamp light sources alongside their tungsten halogen and LED ones. But this video is just about the cheap ones, so let's talk about fibre optics in the first place and how they work. And for this I will need a glass of water. You see, a glass of water has three refractive indexes at play. You've got the refractive index of the water, that's the way light travels through it. Then you've got the refractive index of the glass, which is different to the water, and then you've got the refractive index of air. And when you have two surfaces with different refractive indexes, and I'll demonstrate this by putting this pencil in. Although it might seem clear from the outside, when I put this pencil in, you'll see a reflection of the pencil on the inside like a mirror. And that's because there are two different refractive indexes meeting each other, and that creates an optical mirror effect. And that's the principle of fibre optics. He said, spilling water everywhere. It means that although this fibre optic cable might look quite clear from the outside, it actually looks like a mirror on the inside, because this is made of a core of transparent material, but with an outer sleeve of a different material that is also transparent but has that different refractive index. I'm going to get this water out of the way before I kick it over and spill it. Well, kick it over, knock it over and spill it. That should be relatively safe there, he said unconvincingly. So this kit came in at £32. And it says it comes with a light source rated 16 watts. I can tell you already that that's grossly exaggerated, and I used the power meter and I tested the light source unit at either in standby mode or with all the colours individually and then groups of colours, and I can say that the red drew roughly, what was it, 1 watt, the green, blue and white chips, because it does have a dedicated white chip, they all drew 1.5 watts roughly. I don't know if there's other losses involved in that. So let's say 3 or 4 watts, maybe 6 if we're really pushing it. But we'll see once we take a look at the circuitry, because we will be taking a look at what's inside this unit. So this unit came with the bundle that's 2 meters long. Now 2 meters equates to about 6.5 feet. And if you're creating an illuminated panel with fibre optic points on it, then you're going to probably, for the maximum area, you actually want to put the light source in the middle. So if you had a ceiling and you wanted to create the starry sort of sky effect, you'd put the light source in the middle and you'd fan them out in all directions from that. So although 2 meters doesn't sound huge, 6.5 feet, it is modestly big, because that's the centre point, that's the radius of the circle, so to speak. So you're going to get a sort of radius, a diameter, I should say, of about 4 meters coverage, or about 12 feet. So that's, you know, it's a modest size. The fibres in this are 0.75 millimetre. Now that equates in inches to 1/32 of an inch. It's quite a small fibre. And they did the other kits that had the bigger fibres. This seems to be one of the most common. I was a bit sceptical about, you know, about how bright that would look. But I can tell you, as you'll see later on, it's actually not bad at all. It's actually pretty good. And the idea is that you drill holes in your ceiling panels, or you put a suspended wooden panel and you thread these fibre optics through, And you just push, you can either leave all the slack up above, or you can actually just feed all the excess through and then cut it off, either flush with the ceiling after you've glued them in, or just leave them at all different heights. You could also use this on a table. You could drill holes in the table, you could feed the fibre optics through, glue them, then take a pair of snips and, you know, cut them all flush with the table, and then sand it down and lacquer it, and you'd end up with just all these tiny little sparkly points of light on your table. They're very versatile, they're quite fun to play with. However, here's the bundle, and I have to say, when I ordered this, the bundle they show just looks enormous. It just, you know, I was expecting this thick bundle, particularly given it's got 150 fibres. So when it arrived and I was looking at it and thinking, that bundle is about, it's just over 10 millimetres diameter, about 3/8 of an inch diameter. It doesn't look that big, and I thought, is this really 150 fibres? So I counted 50 of them and then compared the bundle to what was left, and yeah, it's 150. So you get this bundle of fibres all sleeved up in plastic, and you get the light source. Very common arrangement these days of the fibres, the light sources and the way the fibres are put into them. And that is, it basically uses a cable stuffing gland. One of those glands that as you tighten it down, the little rubber ring closes in the cable. So in the instructions it suggests that you put the fibres in, and this is where they've actually, because this bundle's so thin, they've actually wrapped loads of insulation tape around it to try and thicken it up, like when you get the wrong size of gland in a cable and then you make that half-assed attempt at, you know, trying to thicken the cable up so the thing grips it. But they suggest putting it in and then tightening it up onto that so that it holds it roughly central. I mean, that's not holding it central at all there when you do that. But they recommend tightening up. And then in the manual it actually says then take a knife and cut them all flush. But these ones have already been sort of trimmed fairly flush at the end. So I'm not sure if that's just basically assume you're going to be using a brand new, you know, just a loose bundle of fibres that you're putting in, and they're all going to be different lengths. But certainly they're preformed into a loom here. So let's and certainly given the position of the tape, this is where the end pretty much comes in. But having said that, I have tried this, and even though it's not exactly what you'd call central, it does light it quite well, because the LED source inside, it's one of those sort of universal sort of 1 watt, 3 watt type packages, but with 4 chips in it and a reflector. But we'll be opening this afterwards to take a look anyway. But it does have quite good coverage, so I shall pop this in, and I shall tighten the little grub screw up that holds that in place. I say grub screw. Ordinary screw is a better description of this. And let's plug it in then. That's the best thing, cut to the chase. They do actually supply the UK type plug with this, which is quite nice. It's a 12 volt 1.5 amp power supply. So let's plug this in. Plug it into the unit. And you'll notice in the wire hanging out the back, this is actually an RF remote controller. So let's turn it on. Pick a colour. Right, there's red. I'm trying not to make a mess of these fibres now because it's all a big loose bundle here. So yeah, you know, that's not bad, is it? I mean, that looks bright to me, and you know what you're seeing on the camera here is pretty good. The remote controller offers you the choice of a few fixed colours. It offers you red, green, blue, the yellow, which is quite a harsh greeny yellow, the cyan, which is, well, these are obviously just, they're running, the yellow is just red and green at full, the cyan is blue and green at full, and then purple, which is the magenta, which is the red and blue at full. Interestingly, when you press the white button, you get a cold white, a bare, proper LED cold white. But if you press the white button again, sorry, that was wrong actually. This is the bare white LED output, but when you press the white button, it toggles between the bare white chip and white plus red, green and blue at full. So that's the point at which it's putting the highest possible light output out. And as you can see, it's pretty damn good. Even these little individual fibres, it's not bad at all. Another thing you can do, if you're doing sort of ceiling or something like that, is that you can get little caps that push into the ceiling, and you glue them into place, and they've got little crystals in the bottom, or they've got little domes, and then you put a sort of sleeve over the fibre optic, you push it in so it goes into the lens at the end, and then you push the little rubber cap down and it grips it, and that sort of locks it in place. And they can increase the sort of viewing angle of them. I was going to buy some of those, and then, you know, indecision happened and I couldn't decide which ones to buy, and they were quite large quantities, so I ended up not buying them, and now I'm kind of regretting that. I wish I had bought them now. Not to worry. So yes, the controller also lets you choose various sort of flashing patterns. I'm making a huge mess of the fibre optics here. These are going to end up... One thing you should always be careful not to put too much angular pressure on fibre. You don't want to snap them. If you kink a fibre optic, it changes it optically at that point. You want to keep nice sweeping radiuses wherever possible. So the colours... You've got those colours, plus you can also choose what they call DIY colours. It's got the automatic colour sequences, which are just terrible, but you can change the speed of those with the brightness control thing. But you can also choose the DIY colours. So, for instance, I chose DIY one. I chose a proper. Now this is their yellow, which is just a really harsh greeny yellow. I made a warmer yellow, which is more orangey coloured. Not necessarily showing up too great. That's better. Hold on. If I get a bit of paper or something, yeah, I get a bit of paper. Let's put that down there and see if I can fire this out onto it. Does that? No, it doesn't. It's just swamped out. Oh well, it was worth a go. But yeah, so that's an orangey colour as opposed to the harsher, colder yellow. The other colour I made up here was a nice sort of a blue with just a touch of red to make a sort of like a... I suppose mauve. I don't know. So many different shades of purple. That's more sort of ultraviolet looking purple. The other colour I did, and it's quite nice. You can do this. You can put really low intensity. So there's a cyan, which is just a few steps. I think you get about 64 steps intensity in this, but it means you can actually make custom colours which are very low, subtle intensity. Another one was my best effort at trying to create a warmish white, which is kind of actually looking a bit sort of pinky white, but it's a nice shade. So that's the remote, that's the functions. It does store the DIY colours in here. Another thing worth mentioning, to pair the unit, it comes pre-paired, but if it doesn't come pre-paired with the remote control, you press Fade 3 and Fade 7 both at the same time, and the fibre optics flash white to show, the output flashes white to show that it has paired the unit. That's worth noting. It means that theoretically, if you lose the remote controller, you could maybe find another RF one, and hopefully it might actually be able to be paired with it. Or you could use multiple controllers. But anyway, let's note the instructions where it says, please don't open LED engine for inspection or change the electronic circuits if you are not professional. Well, you know what? I think we're professionals, so I think we should open this. So let's get the fibre optic bundle back out of this. Note that this unit can clearly drive huge bundles. It can drive a bundle probably about 20 millimeters, say 3/4 of an inch diameter minimum, because it's got a modestly large space in here. Basically speaking, you could fill the whole of this gland up. And yeah, it would light the whole end of that. So it's actually a very capable unit. You also get kits that have much longer bundles for if you want to do a more serious sort of larger area project. A favourite fibre optic effect that comes to mind is at Epcot at Disney. It's the fibre optic pavement, if you've ever seen that. It's an area where there's a panel of the pavement that has the swirling colours and swirls all over it. And they've actually laid the fibre optics into the concrete of the slab, which unfortunately from day one, if you look at that, you'll see there's a corner completely missing. That is unfortunately where the slab slipped while they were putting it in. And because the fibre optics are fragile, it just sheared them all at that corner, and well, they couldn't really do much about it. It was so much work to even make this concrete slab with the fibre optics laid in the first place that's how it went in. So let's open this unit. I'm not sure if this is one of these. It looks different from the normal case, which normally, you know the ones that normally split into two halves. That's the type I thought it was. I'm not so sure. I think this might be the sort of car amplifier one. That, well, let's just take lots of screws out, shall we? Let's take the end off completely and take a look and see if it's going to reveal how this opens. In use, it doesn't seem to get that hot, but then that's larger because it's not terribly highly powered. But having said that, as you saw the fibres, it looks pretty good. Oh, it's the one with the slide-out cover. Right, what have we got here? Oh, that unplugs. There's the LED. We'll take a look at that afterwards, with a big, strange heatsink. And here's the control circuitry. So what have we got? It looks, from the inductors, it looks as though we've actually got 4 separate switching current regulators, buck regulators, given that it's off a 12 volt supply. We've got the little radio receiver module here. Right, let's take a look at these numbers. The radio receiver module says SYN470R. The chip says MA803AS2. Then underneath it's got 1615GHCCA. I'm not sure what that is. The little booster circuits are they've got tiny text. RT41. It looks like RT or PT411. Let me think now. Hold on, where's the little... I'm going to use the little microscope bit here because they're just that tiny text. Oh, that's better. PT4115. Right, okay. I think I'll go and look them up. Yep, I'm going to go and take a quick look at them and then we can see what these actually are. Well, they're all relatively standard chips. The RF receiver chip, the SYN470R, is very common. It's used in things like car alarm receivers and stuff like that. And as you can see from the number of pins underneath the connections, it's basically just power, ground, and the data output, a single line of data. The power comes into this, and it's converted down to 5 volts by a 78M05 linear voltage regulator here. And that just powers this little microcontroller. The microcontroller is a wee bit trickier. It's made by Megawin Technology, and it's a variant based on the 80C51 processor, but in a sort of just general microcontroller. And these seem to be available in a huge range, depending on which particular functions and facilities you want on board. But this particular one, I couldn't even find it. I couldn't find it on their website at all. The preceding letters, it's MA803AS2. The MA was the bit that didn't seem to match up with anything else, and that seems to be a specific range. The little regulators here are dedicated LED current regulators that have a pulse width modulation input which is being controlled from the processor. So they are basically taking the 12 volts directly and they're stepping it down to the current required by the LEDs. Now, what's interesting about these little chips here, the PT4115, is that they have a very low sense voltage of about 0.1 volt, which is good. It means that you can use quite small resistors. In this case, it's quite unusual. They've used 2 parallel resistors. And I did the maths on the parallel resistors. I did the maths and then completely lost it. Yep. One of the resistors was 0.39 ohms, one was 0.51 ohms. And if you do the maths, based on the calculating parallel resistances, the total resistance equals R1 times R2 divided by the combination of R1 and R2. If you then fill in the values, work it out, it comes out at 0.22 ohms. If you then, to work out the current through the LEDs, you then divide the sense voltage, I equals V over R, the sense voltage over the resistance, it comes to about 455 milliamps. And that does tally up with what I was getting. I was getting the lower voltage of the red LED in this, about 2 volts, is roughly getting about 1 watt power. The higher voltage, about 3 volts for the green, blue and white chips, they are, at that current, they're basically dissipating about almost 1.5 watts. So that sums, you know, what's happening there. It's quite odd that there are 4 separate neutrals, and actually maybe it's not, because keep in mind this is it's got the current regulation, so that might actually require that number of connections off this LED. The heatsink's odd because the fins are on the inside. It's obviously designed to be mounted vertically and have, you know, transistors mounted up either side. But in this case, what really matters here, and it's grey compound, it's quite goopy, is that it's coupling onto the exterior aluminium case. And keep in mind that the total power from this chip running full tilt is roughly about 6 watts if you have it on white plus the red, green and blue at the same time. I wouldn't actually recommend running it absolutely full whack, as with most LEDs, because it's going to get pretty warm. But having said that, it does seem to have enough thermal compound and mating onto fairly chunky heat sinks to take that heat out, as long as this is in a sort of area that the heat can be dissipated from. So it's quite a neat little unit. The assembly in the front has this collet, let's call it a collet, on the front here, with a reflector in the back, which I don't know if that's in. I don't think it's in from the front. Is that glued in? Well, it was glued in. Okay, I may have to put a spot of glue in that. But yeah, that sits in there. And it's notable that the LED has the position, it has the facility with these slots to be adjusted to get it absolutely dead centre with that. Let's see how central it is. Oh, that's not bad. It's not bad at all. But yeah, it's quite a neat little light source. The light source is nice. The fibre optic bundle's nice. It's just, so many applications you could use that. I do like the idea of, I always like the idea of actually speckling this surface with fibre optics, but I'm not sure how good that would look on camera. It might end up just making a mess. But yeah, it's you know, for the money, it's actually quite an exceptional little kit. I don't know how well the LED is going to last. If it came to the crunch, if you bought one of these and then the LED failed, it's not unfeasible. That's a sort of rubbery lens. It's not hard plastic, it feels quite soft. It's not unfeasible to say you could basically replace it with a really dumb LED driver and just one fixed colour if you wanted, or whatever, because it is quite hackable, just the fact it's very modular. So yes, this is as it comes. It's actually quite a nice little unit. Quite a nice little unit indeed. Quite smart. And the output from those fibre optics, although they seem quite thin, the fibre optics, which I've somehow lost. How do you lose a bundle of fibre optics there? Yeah, the bundle of fibre optics, which I've now actually tangled around something. Hold on, I'm trying to release it, It's, you know, it's quite good on its own. You know, it's quite a useful bunch of fibre optics. I'll just shove it right up to this LED floodlight here. Yeah, that's quite bright actually. That's just holding it in front of the workbench floodlight. But yeah, that's quite nice. I do like this. I like it a lot. It's very good value for money for that 32 quid. It's very good indeed. So just to finish off, I'm going to show you it in the dark, just so you can actually see what it looks like. And I have to say, this looks bright. So here's the standard single white LED chip, and here's the boosted white and red, green and blue to create the white, so much brighter. Here's the red, green, blue, yellow, cyan, magenta, DIY colour 1, which is the sort of orangey yellow, the DIY 2, which is a sort of purpley colour, not showing up super well in the camera because what I'm seeing here is a very vivid, what I'd call purple ultimately. Very nice actually, quite a psychedelic purple. This is the super low intensity sort of cyan, but it's really just 1 or 2 steps, if that. I counted the number of steps, by the way, and it was like something like 51 steps, just really an odd range. This is a sort of what I thought. It is, to me, it looks like a warm, goldeny, sort of pinky white. It's kind of showing up more as a sort of reddishy pinky colour on the camera, though. This one was just this was all colours at full. But you can see if I just hold my finger on the green down arrow here, now it's going sort of purple, because you basically choose, you use the up and down on the colours to set the colour you want, and that will then store as that DIY colour. It's also got DIY jump, which I've not really played about with. Here's the automatic modes, which are going to step through colours themselves, and apparently you can change the speed with the remote control using the sort of brightness up and down button. Yeah, it's quite good. It's very good, actually. It's a good number of fibres. It's for the size, just 0.75mm, just that 1/32 of an inch. The brightness is actually really impressive. For home use, these are actually really very useful indeed. Very good indeed, in fact. And the lights, the little light controller, the fact that instead of, it's not cheaped out, it's not tried to use the horrible circuits you find in these little LED floodlights with the red hot resistors and stuff like that. It's actually using proper current regulators for the LED. So the actual quality in this actually seems pretty good as well. So yeah, this is an interesting little unit. Very interesting indeed. I definitely like this. It's very good.